I've officially had this camera for over a year now, and it's become my favorite way to take everyday photos. This is a story about how it was gifted to me and what makes it so special. It was around my birthday last year, and my wife got me a gift. The box showed up and sat at the door. And of course, I eyed it down all evening. We were saving for our wedding at the time, so finances were pretty tight. But Abby had pulled together everything she could to surprise me with a gift. And oh boy, did she surprise me. The time had finally come to put my questions to rest. And when I laid my eyes on the contents inside, I witnessed something that would truly change the course of my photography forever. The Ricoh GR III. Okay, yeah, the Ricoh GR III is pretty great, but let's talk about the problem I was having with photography in the first place, and we can be a little less dramatic than all of this. By day, I'm a professional videographer, meaning that I spend most of my time fumbling around with this excessively large camera or sitting at this exact laptop and editing for hours on end. Before it became my job though, photography was my passion. But now, after years of working in the industry, I sometimes find that the same passion and joy I once felt isn't really there anymore. And that's exactly where this guy comes in. Over the past year of using this camera, I rediscovered the joy and excitement that I felt when I first started photography. And I want to talk about some of the features that make that possible. We're going to start with the most obvious feature of this camera, which is the size. And yes, size matters.
Hey, that's what she said.
This camera is legitimately a pocket camera, meaning that wherever I go, I can take it with me. I typically carry it around in my shoulder sling because it doesn't weigh much, it's easy to grab, and it still has room for things like my wallet and my keys. This completely solved my problem of having to carry a backpack with all of my gear around. Because it's easier to take with me wherever I go, I bring it with me a lot more often. Another aspect to the size of the camera is the intrusiveness. I think that's a word. Anyways, basically wherever you're taking a photo with this camera, you won't feel like you're intruding on a moment. If you're in public, people barely even notice that you're taking a photo because the camera is smaller than your phone. And if they do notice, people typically think you're using a toy because the camera is so small, so they really don't take you seriously. There's also a level to it of cameras can make people act a little strange. Everyone knows the feeling of having a camera pointed at you and all of a sudden you feel a little bit shy. Or maybe you have a friend that you point a camera at and they're like, take it off of me, I don't want it. Because this camera is so small, people don't act strange when they're in front of it. And it's awesome because you're able to capture real, genuine moments without making people feel like they're being captured or like they can't be themselves. Anytime something gets smaller with technology, it typically comes at a compromise of performance, meaning that smaller cameras are more likely to have less quality photos. Lower quality photos. That makes more sense. To be short, you're not going to have that problem with this camera. Yes, in regards to technicalities, it has a lower megapixel count than a bigger professional camera, but when you're viewing photos mainly on a screen that's the size of a phone, you really don't notice, so it's not a problem. It's a small camera that doesn't sacrifice performance. Truthfully, it's one of the first small cameras I've used where I don't notice a huge difference between my pocket camera and my professional camera. All of the photos I've shown so far in this video have been with the Ricoh GR III, but here's a few more just for reference. Now you can't talk about this camera without mentioning the film features. Basically, within the settings there are these presets that allow your photos to look like old film stocks without having to edit them. You can customize any of the presets specifically to your liking too, so it's nice because you can really dial in the exact look you like. One cool feature is that you can actually take two photos at once, one in RAW and one in JPEG. This allows you to have the preset applied to one of the photos automatically, and say you don't like the way the preset looks on the photo, then you still have the RAW as backup to edit if you'd like. I typically shoot in RAW and JPEG just because I like to be safe, but honestly I've never gone back and edited any of the RAWs. I usually just like the way the JPEG looks. A quick search on the App Store will also bring up the Ricoh Recipes app, which has a ton of reference photos and different film recipes you can apply. They're all presets that show you the exact settings you need to get a photo that looks like the ones they display. There's both free and paid versions to get more options, but the truth is some of their free options are absolutely amazing. There's ones that I use all the time, and you can always look on Reddit and things like that to see what people are using. As someone that spends so much time editing at my laptop, using those film recipes allows me to get a photo straight out of camera that I'm happy with without having to worry about offloading the photo onto my computer, editing it, exporting it, and then sending it over to my phone. Eliminating those few extra steps has played a huge role in allowing me to take photos without it feeling like work, and that's extremely undervalued by a lot of people. There's one last aspect to this camera that's worth mentioning, and I don't really know how to quantify it other than the number of photos taken. You see, my goal was to enjoy photography and be excited to pick up the camera again. I can without a doubt say that in the past year, I have taken so many more photos than I did the year prior, and I have a ton of photo albums full of pictures to prove it. This camera encourages me to take more photos, and that's what I wanted. I'm having fun, I'm doing more of the craft that I enjoy, and it's not feeling like work. So in a lot of ways, I have Abby, my wife, to thank for this, because by gifting me that camera, she helped reinstill a passion that genuinely makes me feel like a kid again. Getting to take photos and be excited about it is something that I haven't felt in a long time, and using this camera has brought that back. And there you have it. This camera was the catalyst for me to enjoy photography again. Not saying you need it, there's so many other great options out there, but if you're in a similar boat of not having the same excitement towards photography that I was in, then it's worth checking out. I hope this camera, or whatever you find, can capture memories that are as sweet as the memories it's captured for me, or that it reinstills a passion in you that you once felt. Toodaloo. And maybe subscribe. That would be helpful.